Rose Pugliese, Mesa County Commissioner.
Excellent. Thank you for joining us here today. We wanted to follow up on a news story that we circulated through our social media, which had to do with why Mesa County joined suit against state regulators, coming out of the Daily Sentinel, and is by Rose herself. And so we thought we'd just bring her on to talk a little bit more about that. We'll have the link to the story at thecrudelife.com. But how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me.
So let's talk a little bit about this. So I guess the news would be that Mesa County joined suit against state regulators. So let's talk about that first a little bit. Just kind of, what led you to write this and why we're at where we're at today.
Okay, well, thank you again for your interest in this story. So, Mesa County has been joining with rural counties from across Colorado on both the western slope and the eastern plains during these rulemaking processes that have been coming into effect since Colorado passed Senate Bill 19181. And so what we want to express is that different areas of the state have different concerns. And unfortunately, we see a lot that there is always this one-size-fits-all model that is applied across the state, whether you're dealing with oil and gas issues or agricultural issues. Even now, we have COVID-19 issues, and this uniform application doesn't work for all of our communities. And so we formed a coalition, the Western and Rural Local Governments Coalition, and basically are testifying during these rulemaking processes. But we also wanted to make sure that the rule of law is being followed. And so we feel that our interests are not being taken into account, and that was the reason for the lawsuit.
So what are you asking people to do, in terms of the next steps on certain things? Because I imagine there's a lot of people that are feeling very similar to what you are so much. You wrote a letter. So I would imagine that there's other people that are, having similar thoughts and angles to it as well.
Absolutely. We're always trying to inform and engage our constituents, people from across Colorado, and in some cases, people across the nation, as to what we are trying to do. Really, we just want to get the message across that one size fits all does not work for our communities. Our access to the resources is different. Our resources are different. Our wells are lower emissions, and some of these regulations are so onerous that our companies are just going to close those wells down. And in rural communities where we depend on our natural resources, along with other diversified areas of our economy, it is really important that we protect those resources. So we want people to get informed about these issues and obviously continue to get engaged, whether that be on social media to inform their friends and neighbors, write letters as well, or especially during these rulemaking processes, submit comments.
We've seen Colorado come up with a term, the Colorado Blueprint, to where it seems that there's certain regulations that are coming out of Colorado, and it's either the blueprint behind the regulation or the formula on how to get something to be a regulation or deregulated, if you will. Are you familiar with that up where you're at, up in the Mesa County area, with that kind of that stigma, or I guess there's even a book called that. Are you familiar with that term, or just the fact that Colorado seems to be kind of a ground zero for a lot of oil and gas regulation in other states?
We have definitely seen policies coming out of Colorado that will have impacts on other states, of course. We find and have been incredibly frustrated that most of the regulations that seem to either go through the legislature or become the formation of ballot questions originate in California. And so we feel that Colorado is very different from California. And when we see those ideas coming forward, we find it very difficult to combat at some point. SB 181, it's mostly coming from rulemaking and legislation that California has passed. So we don't want to be California. And, we are very different than other areas of the state. And so just making sure that people understand that our issues are different in rural counties and that our resources are different is really important during these rulemaking processes.
Does that give you any extra pressure that, you guys are people are looking at you guys to either come up with, I guess, one side or the other, different, whether you're from the environmental side or from the oil and gas side? I don't know. It seems like it would add some added pressure knowing so many regulations are coming out of a state, so to speak. So anyway, I just a little sidebar of interest for me a little bit. Sometimes I like to have the bubble gum for the mind, keep chewing a little bit, and I know I go too far. So.
Well, what's interesting about that comment, and this has been my frustration. So I'm a working mom. I've got 2 young kids that I'm raising in my community, and I support oil and gas. And I support oil and gas development because it helps our economy, but it also helps our environment. I mean, we have natural gas that we're working to export to Asia to help clean up their air quality issues. And so I'm an environmentalist too. I care about the environment. I want clean air and clean water. And we can have both a strong economy and balance the environmental concerns in a way that works for all of our communities. And so that's my frustration. So maybe adding a little bit more to your bubble gum.
That's fine. And I'm glad you brought up the natural gas, because that was my next question to you, is that you're up in the Grand Junction area, correct? Mesa County?
I am.
And that's more of a natural gas play than it is an actual oil and gas play, correct?
Yes.
And so, natural gas, as we all know this, they've been talking about this for 10 years. Natural gas is the future of bridging and being a foundation for a lot of different energy sources, whether you're going the green way, you're going the fossil fuel way, or whatever way you're going. Natural gas is there. And so I look at where you guys are at, and so different how they're trying to put these one-size regulations on these different areas that are just so geographically different, and resources are different. And has that come on conversations at all, just the one-size-fit model, trying to put that on, how just resources vary? I mean, you go to a shale play and you got to change your chemistry every 10 feet, it seems like.
Oh, absolutely. And, every time our coalition, and specifically when I speak, I always talk about that. I mean, on the Front Range of Colorado, they have wet gas, which is very different than the dry gas that we have here. We have the opportunity to export our natural gas resources to Asia, and that's what we're working on. We have enough natural gas in one formation, it's called the Piceance Basin, in northwest Colorado, to power the whole state of California for 50 years. And so just that abundance of the resource and the fact that it's trapped and that our only markets are overseas is very different than what other parts of the state are experiencing. Our access to the resource is different. Our formations are different. And so, that one-size-fits-all just does not work for our communities.
Now, you say that you're a county commissioner, is that right? Or you're running for county commission?
I am.
Okay, so you are the county commissioner, one of the county commissioners. Okay, great. Go ahead.
I am a county commissioner. I'm in my the last 6 months of my second term, and I'm term limited. Okay.
I know that the BLM office opened up there in the Western Slope, and so that was a big move in terms of oil and gas know really the importance. I thought that was more of a, the government was saying, hey, this is, we know natural gas is the future. We know that, the Grand Junction Mesa area is going to be the future. Have you guys talked about that up there, that BLM office that opened up there? Or is that kind of old news now?
It is a little bit. I was one of the advocates along with several county commissioners from across Colorado, and definitely in Northwest Colorado. We were advocating to get the BLM headquarters moved to Grand Junction. And we are obviously happy to have that. And it has to do with oil and gas, but it also, I mean, in Mesa County alone, we have 72% of our whole county is federal land, and of that, 50% is BLM. And I will tell you, as we've gone through resource management processes and talking about management of those public lands, we have always felt very frustrated that the ultimate decisions are made by people in Washington, D.C., who don't even know where Mesa County is. Really. And so having the BLM headquarters here is really great for our economy. It's also great for our professional community that will have access to jobs that they would have never had. But most importantly, people who understand the resources that we have and the impacts that the decisions have on the economies will actually be living in the communities in which their decisions affect. And for us, that was a really important point, whether that's oil and gas, agriculture, tourism and outdoor recreation. All of those industries are important, and they all recreate or utilize public lands in some way. And so having access to the people who are making those decisions and having them live in our communities was really important, was a really important motivator for us to move forward with advocating to move the BLM headquarters to Grand Junction.
So kind of circling back, getting to the front of the interview once again, one of the reasons why we're talking today is about the, in the Daily Sentinel editorial op piece, why Mesa County joined suit against the state regulators. And basically there's discussion, public discussion being had about this. So your advice to people once again, if they want to either have their voice heard or be a part of the public discussion, just kind of summarize once again kind of the next step for people. I like to do that with interviews. You know, what's next? Let's get over the past and figure out how to take care of what's next, you know?
Absolutely. Call to action is always really important, especially obviously for your listeners. But yes, you know, we ask that people get informed and engaged in the rulemaking process as it's going through in Colorado. There will be several rulemakings on air quality and also the oil and gas development process. And so having people be educated, informed, that writing letters to the editor, and also, you know, posting information on social media, and just basically talking to their friends and neighbors about the importance of creating balance and following the rule of law. And that's really all we're asking for.